Ninjas. They exist in all kinds of mediums, and have for a long time. Whether it be as historically accurate ninjas whose entire purpose is stealth and assassination, video game ninjas who are able to slice opponents into the air and slash them down 13 times, cutting them to smithereens, chakra mech warrior pilots who are able to summon the power of literal gods into gigantic lightning bows, or even turtles with masks. We've been obsessed with ninjas for well, about as long as ninjas have existed. However, as fans of any medium, we've always asked ourselves, what is the greatest representation of ninjas in modern day culture? While some people would probably say the Ninja Gaiden games, the majority of people would either say the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Naruto. And thus it's always seemed like somewhat of an inevitability, especially when you consider the fact that Box Lunch released a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Naruto collab line like 2 years ago, that at some point these two massive IPs were gonna have a crossover of sorts. And it's my job to report to you today that crossover has happened. Well, that crossover happened about a week ago, but as you can see, my backdrop isn't what it usually is, and that's because I'm in Guangzhou, China. Usually, if I was still in sunny Los Angeles, I would have reported on this a couple of days ago. However, a couple of days ago, my lovely girlfriend Dorothy got a report that her grandfather wasn't doing so good, so I'm over here to support her and her family for an indefinite amount of time. However, fortunately, I brought all of my very fancy recording equipment, and while this room definitely does have an echo, good mic so you can't really hear it. But all that is to say, if you're watching this video, this is gonna be my backdrop for a while here. I apologize, but you know, family comes first. Anyways, as I was saying, about a week ago, we got the dropping of a comic that we've known is coming for a while now. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles X Naruto comic, written by famous comic artist Caleb Goldner, who's known for writing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Sonic comics, as well as his own original comics, Task Force Rad Squad. And this comic is a fair amount of fun, and there's a lot to talk about from it. We get to see pre-time skip Team 7 with Sasuke still around, interact with the 4 Turtle Sons and Splinter as they try to escort April O'Neil to the Big Apple Village. There's a battle between the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Team 7, some crazy jutsus being pulled off, a couple of funny moments, and overall some very interesting things to power scale. And thus, while not a crazy amount of things happen in this comic, it is fun to have Naruto back in some capacity. Thus today we're going to be reveling in that fun because today we're talking Naruto X TMT comic number 1 Explain. But before we get to explaining anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And for the sake of my girlfriend, because she's going through a very tough time right now, go to her jewelry store, Claire & Co. Buy yourself some jewelry. Get something nice for your loved ones. It's all under $40. It's hypoallergenic. It doesn't stain. It doesn't tarnish. It's perfect. It's what I wear every single day. Look at this face. How could you say no to this? So, like I said, there's a fair amount to get into with this chapter, so let's go ahead and get right on into it. This comic opens with some exposition for Naruto, which I guess kind of makes sense when you consider the fact that this is actually a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic, and therefore probably a lot of the people interacting with it are Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fans and not Naruto fans. But maybe, and this could absolutely be my bias talking, I feel as though the Naruto fandom is larger than the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fandom. No shade towards comic readers, obviously, but I just, who's keeping up with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on like a monthly basis? Maybe there's a bunch of people, I don't know, I never read comics. But anyways, the chapter opens with Kakashi reading his mission scroll, which details a B-ranked mission that him and Team 7 are currently on. And while I get that the purpose of the scroll is to give exposition on the characters from Naruto that are now in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles universe, but the way that they go about it is just like inherently very silly. See, because at the top of the scroll, basically what's being said makes a fair amount of sense. It's Hidden Leaf Village escort mission by the order of the 5th Hokage, Lady Tsunade Senju, rank B. Now, it's important to note that at this moment, Tsunade is still the Hokage, because remember, we're in part 1 of Naruto and Sasuke's still around. So this mission presumably takes place somewhere between the Konoha Crush arc and the Sasuke retrieval arc, which is interesting when you consider the fact that Sasuke spent the majority of that time either laid up or incredibly angsty, so how they fit this mission in all the way to the Big Apple Village, I'll never know, but I shouldn't be asking questions like that. The scroll goes on to say, objective, safely deliver traveler April O'Neil to her home in the Big Apple Village, which is just, for those of you who don't know American idioms, New York. They also could have called it Village Hidden in the Rent Control, but I think that's too topical. The scroll then goes on to give us exposition about every single one of the Naruto characters who are gonna pop up in this Turtles comic. And like I said, this is for exposition, but it's also hilariously detailed. Like, just put yourself into the mentality of a person writing down this mission scroll, deciding to add all of these details for each single person who's on this mission. Because first it says, Kakashi Hatsuke, Kakashi of the Sharingan, copy master of 1,000 techniques, devoted teacher. Is he? Is he a devoted teacher? Not to Sakura, I'll tell you that much. Also, hardly to Sasuke for being entirely real. He's actually pretty much the least devoted teacher we've gotten in Naruto. And then goes on to say, shinobi personnel, and the first person it details is Sasuke, where it says, Sasuke, first in his class, last of his clan, unwavering and adept Sharingan wielder. You could have just said he can use the fireball technique. Why did we add the last of his clan bit? Sakura's is much chiller than Sasuke and Naruto's because she has no childhood related trauma, because hers just says, Sakura Haruno, powerful fighter and medical ninjutsu practitioner in training. And her getting less exposition than both Naruto and Sasuke is actually pretty in line with how much exposition she gets in her own manga, so at least Caleb's getting the message here. But last and absolutely not least is Naruto, who is introduced as, and I kid you not, orphan containing the powerful nine-tailed fox spirit, fighting to become the next Hokage, the leader of the greatest shinobi in the Hidden Leaf Village. Why do we need to add orphan? Oh, Naruto's going on another mission. Hey, scribe, make sure you include that his parents are dead. Anyways, we then get to the action of the comic, and I'm gonna say, I actually really do like the art style on this. It is very, and I mean very Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but Team 7 looks good in this style. And so does April O'Neil. She looks like a legitimate Konoichi. But in the next panel, we can see that Kakashi's reading the scroll, and Naruto's looking at a turtle that's flipped over on its back. Sakura's yelling at Naruto, telling him to stop messing with the local wildlife, but Naruto says he's just trying to help this little guy, referring to the turtle. Naruto then goes on to ask Kakashi, is this really a B-ranked mission? All I've done thus far is save this little turtle. He then goes on to say, poor thing was flipped on its back, which elicits a from Sakura and a huh from April. Now Sasuke, who's either feeling particularly angsty or somewhat chatty, responds to April's huh and goes, oh, you haven't spoken this entire time. I guess Naruto is truly useful for something. And at this point that Naruto either trips or is assaulted by Kakashi, I genuinely don't know which is which. Unfortunately, the action's kind of hard to read in this comic. Kakashi, while Naruto is either tripping or being assaulted by him, tells Naruto, turtles can handle themselves. Show more respect to nature, Naruto. And it's like, hey, Kakashi? No, they can't. If a turtle flips on its back, it dies. Like, it can be helped by other turtles, by other animals, but if a turtle ends up on its back, it can't get back over by itself. That's like Turtles 101. Anyways, at this point, April decides that she's not going to be outwitted or out-angst by anybody, so she snarks back at Sasuke. I can say the same thing about you. What was your name again? Sasuke? Maybe we both got a lot on our minds, eh? And this immediately puts Sasuke in his place as he just goes, Now at this point, the Sakura decides to ask April a line of questions, saying to her, you met with our Hokage, Tsunade. And I know that Tsunade wouldn't meet with a reporter unless she knew that it was something serious. Naruto chimes in on the line of questions here and says, yeah, it doesn't seem like you want Tsunade's fake beauty tips or anything, right? And at this point that we get into the backstory of why April O'Neil was in the Hidden Leaf in the first place. And it's basically every backstory we've ever gotten for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles ever. That is to say that April went to the Hidden Leaf because she was looking for the foremost authority in ninja biology. And at first I was gonna be like, huh, ninja biology, what a stupid combination of two terms. And then I remembered that ninjas have a chakra circulatory system. There's no way they're built like regular humans. So yeah, maybe Tsunade would be a good person to talk to. And apparently April wanted to talk to Tsunade, the foremost expert on ninja biology, because she's doing a news story on genetic mutations. Well, that is to say, experimental science, and her research started all the way back in her city, the Big Apple Village. At this point that we get the rundown that we basically get in the beginning of every Ninja Turtles IP we've ever gotten ever. Basically like how every single time there's a new Spider-Man IP, we gotta see Peter Parker get bitten by a spider. April gives us the rundown that scientist Dr. Baxter Stockman got let go from his teaching position in the city's best university for undisclosed reason. And therefore he reached out to the press, April O'Neil, to tell his side of the story. See, apparently the university had hired Stockman to engineer machines, but he considered himself a greater scientist than just the person who engineered machines, and therefore he spent his time and the university's money on biological research. And the university, who hired him not to do that, got pretty upset. And honestly, I'm kind of on their side. See, apparently Stockman was obsessed with the idea of militarizing bioengineered mutants, which would all be made possible through his theoretical mutagenic compound known as, come on, you can say it with me now, ooze. We then learn that Stockman dreamed of creating innately powerful super soldiers who combined the strongest traits of both humans and animals. Apparently, Stockman wanted to create and control monstrously powerful mutant ninjas. At this point, that we see a hypothetical future where April is being attacked by Rocksteady and Superfly. After hearing this exposition, Naruto thinks to himself, combining humans and animals to make monstrous beings, as we see his 8 trigram seal shining through his jacket. And like, yeah, I mean, I understand the connection to Naruto and Kurama, I guess, but like, Kurama's not an animal, right? We can acknowledge the fact that Kurama's not an animal. He's modeled after a 9-tailed fox, but he's not an animal. He's a giant, massive chakra. He's not even a real thing, technically. But no, I get it at this point. When Naruto manifests as Kurama, he got a tail and claws and longer teeth. So it's definitely similar. Now, Sasuke, I would say more aptly says, sounds dangerous, while thinking about Orochimaru. And like, yeah, to me, that feels like a more apt comparison when you consider the fact that Orochimaru's true form is literally that of a great white snake. Now, Sakura doesn't think of a third half animal, half human, but she does go, But you said it's all theoretical, right? Which I find rather interesting because, like I talked about recently in a reaction video I was doing, this does a pretty good job of elucidating the differences in the way that Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura think. Sakura's thinking about the present, both analytically and scientifically, while Naruto and Sasuke are thinking about the past. Also, at this point in time, Sakura didn't know that Kisame existed, so she doesn't really have a half animal, half person to think about. And unfortunately, if I could be a bit of a stickler, I would say unfortunately the best example we have of a TMT-esque mutant in the Naruto universe, it would be Kisame. And while Kisame did pull up to Konoha, only Asuma, Might Guy, and Kakashi met him, I believe. I don't think Kurenai met him. She was too busy getting sucked into her own tree. But before April's able to answer Sakura's question and go, oh yes, theoretically, somebody yells, April O'Neil, you're coming with the Foot Clan, and wouldn't you know it, it's the Foot Clan. To this point that the leader of the Foot Clan, who appears to be wearing a kitsune mask and a giant kitsune tail, or is actually just a kitsune, says, hand over the reporter. To which Kakashi responds to, in a very Kakashi way, I will say. I don't love exactly how every single one of the characters is being written in this comic by Caleb Goldner, but I do have to say, he nails Kakashi. And didn't you just call yourself the Foot Clan? And that's exactly how Kakashi would respond to that, because he has an incredibly dry sense of humor, and I love that about him. And in response to this arguably lighthearted joke from Kakashi, Kitsune, in the most anime way possible, I almost kind of cringe at the idea of having to read it to you myself, goes, grr, you'll pay for this disrespect, which is, it's writing. And, unfortunately, it doesn't get a whole lot better, because Naruto, in response to seeing this kitsune, goes, a foxtail, but you're not. It's this point that Kurama decides to chime in, because apparently Kurama at this point of the story wants to help Naruto, which isn't really something that Kurama would do at this point in time, but whatever, as Kurama decides to, for no real reason, to tell Naruto that's no mere animal, but she's no tailed beast spirit either. Interesting that we called it a tailed beast spirit. I mean, I guess they are kind of spirits, but I've never heard them talked about in that way. She's something else, like a one-tailed fox fake. Now, I'm not entirely sure what Kurama means by that. I don't know if he's saying that she's a fake Shukaku, but Shukaku's not a fox, he's a Tanuki. So Kurama could also be saying that she's a one-tailed fox fake? The one-tailed fox is just a fox. In fact, the fox doesn't become a yokai until it lives for 100 years and gets a second tail. And that fox yokai doesn't actually become a kitsune until they live for 1,000 years, at which point they get 9 tails. So I'm not entirely sure what's being said here, and I'm not entirely sure why it's being said, but at least we got to see Kurama. Now Naruto, in response to seeing Kurama, because at this point, mind you, he's terrified of Kurama, says, no, not now, I don't need. But before he can say anything else, Kakashi says, focus Team 7, and it snaps Naruto out of it. Kakashi then, once again, in a very Kakashi way, says, let's see how these Foot Clan members catch fists. And that's just great. And Team 7 enters some semblance of the Manji formation that they used to protect Tazuna in the Hidden Waves arc. That is to say that they surround April. However, before the Foot Clan can end up like the Demon Brothers when they pulled up on Kakashi jumping out of a puddle, a bunch of smoke bombs are popped, and rather interestingly, a katana, a staff, a sai, and a nunchuck take out all the underlings of the Foot Clan, but not the female kitsune one-tailed fake person. As they yell out, no, not them, and then make the seal of confirmation and say the Foot Clan will not let this injustice go unpunished. And when the smoke settles, we see that Team 7 is now standing across from Splinter and his 4 sons. As Splinter says, 1 adversary down, 1 more to go, my sons. And honestly, the turtles look great. Leonardo was wearing samurai armor, and rather interestingly, maybe as a homage to Zoro, has 3 katanas, 2 in his hands and 1 in his shell. He also has a gigantic rope tied around his waist, much like Sasuke in part 2 of Naruto. Donatello is wearing the Jonin flak jacket, And Mikey and Raph are both wearing ninja headbands that have a symbol on it that I don't recognize. It appears to be like two diamonds overlapping, and honestly, I think that's kind of a miss, because the Splinter Clan has a symbol. It's a 5-petaled flower that then gets later adapted into a 5-headed turtle of sorts that's often switched out with 5 pieces of pizza. And I would have much preferred that that symbol ended up on their headbands. It just would have made more sense to me. I believe that the symbol that they're wearing is supposed to be that of an apple, because they themselves come from the Big Apple Village. And like, that makes sense because technically they are always fighting on the side of New York, but I feel like it's kind of a miss to not incorporate that martial arts clan symbol into any of their designs. Though Raph on his Ambu mask does have 2 Uzumaki swirls, 1 on each cheek, and that I appreciate. Now Leonardo tells Team 7 to let Miss April O'Neil go, and Raph chimes in, or get stomped, which elicits different responses from all of Team 7, but basically lets them all know that it's fighting time. Naruto says, let her go to a bunch of masked bandits, and Sakura says, are your masks on so tight that you're going lightheaded? And Sasuke says, nothing at all. He just kind of stares. And this is like a genuinely very fair response from Team 7. Like, not only are the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles wearing headbands from villages they've probably never seen before, but they're also wearing Ambu masks. Now, in actuality, if all 5 of the Splinter Clan were actually Ambu level ninjas, this would be a really, and I mean really bad fight for Team 7. I mean, yeah, Kakashi's probably about as strong as 3 to 4 Ambu members at this point, but I don't know if Team 7 by themselves are taking out an Ambu level threat. But fortunately, they're kind of just big turtles. And April, who knows both of these parties and understands that both of these parties are actively fighting to keep her safe, could absolutely make sure that no conflict arises here. And so she does it. Then she whips out her camera and says, this should be interesting. Let's see how it plays out. And like, at this point, both Kakashi and Sasuke know Chidori. What happens if they pulled that out? Were you gonna stop them mid-Chidori? Yeah, you wouldn't be the first woman to try, and you'll be the second woman to fail. When Raphael's shell gets treated like Gaara's sand dome, but instead of screaming about blood, he's trying to suck air through a 3rd hole, yeah, you're gonna wish that story had maybe waited a minute. But no, instead she assumes that these 2 groups of people who are using deadly weapons to try and hurt the other group of people that are trying to protect her won't end up killing each other, and therefore this is gonna make a fantastic scoop. And Leonardo, being the leader of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, flies into action first, screaming, I'll take on their leader. And who does he jump after? The clear adult? No, the 13-year-old. Because Leonardo, after proclaiming he's going for the leader, attacks Sasuke, screaming, cut off the head and the body will fall. And Sasuke is just as confused by this as you or I, as he asks Leonardo, who's swinging towards him, what makes you think I'm the leader? While throwing kunai at Leonardo that he easily reflects. And, you know, based off that feat and that feat alone, I would say that maybe Leonardo is actually a ninja. Then again, Leonardo's entire body is covered with a gigantic, strong as steel shell, so he probably didn't even need to block these kunai when you consider the fact that kunai, when unblocked in the Naruto universe, barely hurt people with flesh. Now Leonardo, in response to Sasuke's question, says, maybe you're not the leader, but I know pure vengeance when I see it. And listen, I get that we're trying to build a bridge between Leonardo's character development arc and Sasuke's, but why would having pure vengeance in your heart make you the leader? But anyways, Leonardo switches from trying to kill Sasuke to trying to mentor him, as he says, trust me, that pure vengeance will only lead to your destruction, while he slashes at an after image of Sasuke. Sasuke then reappears and tries to land a kick on Leonardo that Leonardo blocks with both his katanas. As Sasuke says, if this is the best that you can do, I got nothing to worry about, at which point Leonardo lets him know that he's just getting started. And are Leonardo's katanas blunted? Because I've seen him slash hundreds of people before and nobody ever gets a cut. And I get it, ratings, but you're telling me Sasuke kicks full speed into 2 katanas and doesn't even cut the fabric on his leg warmers? We then smash cut to Raphael, who's caught in combat against Sakura and's not happy about it, because he, like Kishimoto, is sexist. And for a second it feels as though that sexism is well-founded, because Sakura, just like Sasuke, opens up her attack barrage by throwing 3 kunai that Raph very easily dodges, all while saying, I wanted to fight the snobby-looking kid with the bangs, in reference to Sasuke. Everybody wants to fight Sasuke, and genuinely, that's fair, so do I. Sakura then comes in with a 4th kunai, this one in her hands, and goes to strike at Raph, but hits him in the shell, and says, armor. At which point Raph says, well, something like that. And hey, Raph, it's not something like that, it is. It's biologically equipped armor. Sakura then lets out her iconic cha, then I don't have to hold back. And it's like, Sakura, why were you holding back to begin with? You're a genin. These are 6.5-foot tall turtles. Why were we going easy? Now, Sakura absolutely disintegrates the ground around Raph, and Raph starts to get real nervous. Not because he's gonna lose, but because he's gonna lose to a girl. And at this point, that Sakura yells at Raph and says, still wish you were fighting somebody else. And it's like, hey, Sakura, absolutely. This is a lose-lose situation for me. We then cut to Naruto, who's drawn the short straw of having to battle against Mikey and Donatello simultaneously, but he's really excited about it. Now, Mikey and Donatello are confused as to why he's so excited, and they think maybe he just likes being beat up twice as much. But as they try to land hits on Naruto, Naruto jumps over their attacks and says, so you guys truly think you have the upper hand here, huh? And so Naruto does the thing. And by the thing, I mean uses the Shadow Clone while telling Raph and Donatello about how he's going to become the Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village, using multi-Shadow Clone jutsu to create an entire army of clones to attack Mikey and Donatello. However, the Shadow Clones can't necessarily find a way to get through Mikey and Donatello's defenses, as they're slowly but surely easily dispatched by the two of them. And Donatello tells Mikey that we just need to be able to find the original, which is kind of like finding a needle in the haystack. Now, it's at this point that we cut to Kakashi, who's battling against Splinter. Kakashi tells Splinter that your team seems powerful, but they lack polish, and Splinter responds by saying, I was just about to say the same thing about yours, which is just an eloquent way of saying no you. Now, Kakashi tries to throw a kick that Splinter blocks with his staff, and then Splinter parries by trying to hit Kakashi with his staff, but Kakashi catches the staff, while saying their movements seem familiar, but something is off. Now, it's at this point that Splinter not only does something I don't understand, but also says something that I don't understand. As Splinter makes the seal of confirmation, generates a lightning bolt at the bottom of his staff, and slams it into the ground, which flings lightning in all directions, and sends Kakashi spiraling away while saying, let me guess, their attitudes. Now, I believe what Kakashi is talking about here is that the movements of the turtles themselves seem similar to the taijutsu and kenjutsu taught in the Hidden Leaf, but it doesn't seem 100% familiar because the martial arts that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles learn doesn't necessarily come from the Naruto world. I also believe it's a reference to what happens at the end of this chapter, but we'll get to that when we get to that. We then cut back to Sasuke and Leonardo's fight. As Sasuke is telling Leonardo, you lecture me about vengeance, but you fight a whole lot like you want vengeance yourself. As Leonardo gets behind Sasuke and says, we are not the same. I use my emotions as power to protect my brothers. As Sasuke uses a tree that he lands on to dodge a katana swing from Leonardo while saying, I don't have that burden. And it's like, I guess in a sense you don't have that burden, but at the same time, your brother is a massive burden on your life. So in a way, you also kind of do. Now, at this point that it's revealed that Leonardo's katanas aren't dulled, because as Sasuke narrowly dodges this sword, the sword cuts a piece of his hair, which seems to imply the katanas are sharp. Not sharp enough to cut his leg warmers, but sharp. We then cut back to Sakura and Raph, as Sakura saying, you're not nearly as slow as you look, and Raph saying, you're not nearly as weak as you look. But we both know in this ninja eat ninja world, strength alone ain't gonna cut it. As he closes the distance between the two of them, Sai wields it in both hands, saying, you gotta be just as tough as you are strong. And trust me when I tell you, Raph, she's tough. She's so tough, she's regenerated entire limbs before. And it's at this point that Raph either misses her with a straightforward attack, or Sakura is able to dodge it and get around him and kick his shell. And once again, I can't necessarily tell because the action is not super well drawn in this comic. We then cut back to Mikey and Donnie, who are still fighting against Naruto's clone, as Mikey asks Donnie if he has any ideas to deal with the relentless storm of clones they're currently fighting. And at this point, the Donatello says, yes, I do have an idea, but I'm gonna need your help. As Donnie says, there's a certain rhythm to how these clones attack, so next time you get attacked, I'm gonna need you to act normal. Mikey lets him know that he is just the thing. And it's at this point that a Naruto appears on Mikey's back, and the Naruto winds up a punch and goes to punch Mikey in the head. But at the exact moment that Naruto's fist comes into contact with Mikey's skull, Mikey pops his head into a shell, which makes Naruto for a second believe that he had caught his first of what would eventually be two bodies throughout the entirety of his life. Unless you count Delta and Kaguya and Momoshiki. If you count aliens and cyborgs, Naruto's actually got a lot of bodies. Now, when Naruto is reeling about committing his first murder, get used to it, son. You're gonna kill a guy you think is Itachi eventually. Donatello flies in and whaps him on the head with his bow staff. And as Donatello and Mikey loid over Naruto, they tell him, you just told on yourself. We then cut back to April, who's trying to record this hypersonic combat between Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Team 7 on a 1980s handheld camera, as she has the audacity to say the most obvious thing I've ever heard uttered when she goes, tisk, this footage is gonna come out all blurry. Yeah, we know, April, your camera's too old to date Leonardo DiCaprio. How did you think you were gonna capture this fight? However, while she's having this realization, she says, well, might as well try. And at this point, the Team 7 pulls back up on April to ask her, everything's alright over here, doll. Now, the Splinter Clan also takes this opportunity to regather, and the two groups have another old-fashioned stare-down that once again, April could break up but decides not to. As Splinter talks to Kakashi and says, "Impressive, your young shinobi rival even my sons." And at this point, the Sasuke says, "Oh, sons, so we're up against a proper clan now." To which Splinter responds by saying that the Foot Clan has made the clan term all but meaningless here in the Big Apple Village. We are but a humble family. Like, the sentiment's there, but my god, do clan and family mean the exact same thing. Now, at this point, the Kakashi gets fed up with a nice conversation as he tells Splinter, "Well, perhaps I should be thankful for your family for finally giving my students a decent workout, but I think I've seen enough," and it's at this point that he reveals his Sharingan. He then does something that I've never seen Kakashi do, especially with his Sharingan, which is yoink the Anbu masks off the face of every single one of the Splinter clansmen, with what I can only assume is wind release, but unfortunately whose most apt comparison in the Naruto universe would be Almighty Pull, which is a Rinnegan ability, not a Sharingan ability. Now maybe, just maybe, it is the most precise, apt, and controlled usage of wind release we've ever seen. And yes, Kakashi does know 1,000 jutsu, so maybe it's one of the 1,000 jutsus we've never seen before. To me, and to anybody who's read Naruto, it looks a lot like Almighty Bolt. And as Kakashi stares at the Splinter Clan, now demasked, he says, "Hidden meanings within hidden meanings. You may look different, but a shinobi knows how to see through deception. And all this is all too real. However, unexpected. It's good to see you again, Hamato Yoshi." Which, for those of you who don't know, is not Master Splinter, or at least is not Master Splinter in all iterations of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. See, it's kind of a coin flip. Hamato Yoshi is either Splinter's owner before he's killed by Shredder, while in other iterations, he's the human version of Splinter before he's mutated or reincarnated as a rat. Now, Kakashi referring to Splinter as Hamato Yoshi seems to imply that the ooze in this version of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles universe mutates humans into animals, which isn't unheard of in the TMT universe, but it might seem to imply that Splinter's sons, the turtles, were actually humans prior to being turtles. But this is rather interesting because Kakashi knowing who Hamato Yoshi is kind of a callback to something that happens about halfway through this chapter. See, because when Kakashi says their movements seem familiar, this is Kakashi referring to the fact that he knows the martial art style of Hamato Yoshi. However, the movements of the turtles seems kind of different from the teachings that Kakashi knows. Now, this is most likely going to be explained away by the fact that Kakashi knows 1,000 jutsus, one of those jutsus which could be the taijutsu of Hamato Yoshi, but it could also be revealed that Kakashi at some point trained with Hamato Yoshi while Hamato Yoshi was still a person. Or maybe even during his Anbu days, Kakashi crossed blades against the legendary ninja that was Hamato Yoshi. Because what I believe we're going to be building towards here is that Hamato Yoshi probably had some genin of his own that were the turtles. However, Hamato Yoshi, the legendary ninja from the village of the Big Apple, and his genin came into contact with the ooze, maybe on a mission of sorts, and that turned all of them into mutagenic animals. Now, I can't say that with necessarily any certainty, but it being confirmed that Splinter was a human prior to being a rat seems to me to imply that the turtles were also at some point humans, and also therefore probably somewhat at one point low-level ninjas. But then again, who's to say? As a twist for the end of the chapter, it is a fair amount of fun. Not necessarily something we've ever seen before, but a fun enough twist on Master Splinter. And with that, that's the end of the chapter. And the end, at least for a little while, of the Naruto and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle content. Now, I say that because we have 2 months until the next chapter of this comic, as it doesn't drop until January 15th of 2025. But if you guys enjoyed this read and you're excited for the second chapter, tell me in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Now I'm gonna go eat some Chinese food. And I know what some of you are thinking, Nick, it's all Chinese food over there. You're right, and that joke always plays.